This film is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not aim to advertise, promote, or suggest any specific conduct. Case number 5. The man who sold the Eiffel Tower. Some criminals steal with a gun. Victor Lustig stole with a smile, a forged letter, and a perfectly tailored suit. He spoke 5 languages, used at least 45 different names, and carried himself like a nobleman who had never worked a day in his life. He had no real title, no real fortune, and as far as anyone can prove, not even a verifiable birth record. He was quite simply a ghost who sold things he did not own. He was said to have been born around the 4th of January, 1890, in the Bohemian town of Hostinei, then part of Austria-Hungary. We say said to have been because when historians went looking, they could not find a single document to prove it. No birth record, no school record, nothing. The man the world would know as Count Victor Lustig may have begun his life as a name he simply invented. By his 20s, he was working the great ocean liners that crossed between Europe and America. To the wealthy passengers, he was a charming aristocrat, a count with a faint scar on his left cheek, a souvenir, he said, of a duel over a woman in Paris. To everyone else, he was a card cheat and a swindler, fleecing the rich of their boredom and their money somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic. His genius was not theft, it was patience. By his own legend, he lived by a set of rules, a list later remembered as the 10 Commandments for con men. Be a patient listener, never look bored, wait for the other person to reveal his politics, then agree with them, never boast, never appear in a hurry. The con was never about the lie, it was about making the victim want desperately to believe it. His first masterpiece was a box, a handsome cabinet of polished mahogany fitted with brass dials and rollers, which Lustig called the Rumanian money box. Its purpose, he explained in a hushed voice, was simple and impossible. It could copy money, slide in a genuine banknote, wait 6 hours while a secret chemical process did its work, and the machine would hand you back 2 identical spendable bills. Of course, it copied nothing. Lustig would load a real $100 bill inside in advance. When a curious mark fed in his own note, the machine would slowly, theatrically, produce 2, the original and the one Lustig had hidden. The buyer watched real money appear before his eyes. What he was really watching was the most expensive magic trick of his life. He sold these boxes for $10,000 apiece, and sometimes 2 or 3 times that. The beauty of the con was its built-in head start. The buyer was happily waiting 6 hours for his next fake bill, while Lustig was already on a train out of town. By the time the machine stopped working, the count was 100 miles away, counting real money. According to the accounts of his life, one of his victims was a Texas sheriff. When the lawman realized his money box was a fraud, he tracked Lustig down, and Lustig, never flustered, convinced him he had simply operated the device incorrectly, then handed over a stack of cash to make peace. The cash was counterfeit. The sheriff was later arrested for passing fake bills he never knew he'd been given. But the money box was small. In the spring of 1925, Victor Lustig arrived in Paris and read a newspaper story that would make him immortal. The Eiffel Tower, the article complained, was rusting and ruinously expensive to maintain. The city, it suggested, might one day have to tear it down. Most people read that and shrugged. Lustig read it and saw the greatest sale of his career. He had counterfeit government stationery printed, embossed with official letterhead. On it, he gave himself a title, Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. Then he booked a suite at the Hotel de Crillon, one of the grandest hotels in Paris, and sent confidential invitations to a handful of the city's leading scrap metal dealers. The government, he told them gravely behind closed doors, had made a secret decision. The Eiffel Tower was never meant to be permanent. It was a hazard, a relic of the 1889 World's Fair, and the state intended to sell it quietly to avoid public outrage as 7,000 tons of scrap iron. He swore them to secrecy. He was, after all, a senior official entrusting them with a delicate matter of state. From the group, Lustig chose his mark with care. His name was André Poisson, a dealer hungry to break into the inner circle of Parisian business, insecure enough to want it badly, and trusting enough not to ask too many questions. Lustig sensed it instantly. Poisson did not just want to buy the Eiffel Tower. He wanted to be the kind of man the government would call upon to buy it. Then Lustig added the final, perfect touch. He confided that, as a humble civil servant, his salary was meager, and hinted that a small private gift would smooth the paperwork along. It was a stroke of genius. A bribe did not frighten Poisson. It reassured him. This was exactly how a corrupt French official would behave. The request for a kickback was the very thing that convinced him the whole deal was real. Poisson paid. He handed over a suitcase of cash, reportedly around 70,000 francs, though accounts vary, for the right to demolish France's most famous landmark, plus a private bribe on top. Lustig signed the bill of sale, pocketed the money, and boarded a train for Vienna. He had just sold the Eiffel Tower to a man who would never own a single bolt of it. When the truth finally dawned on Poisson, he was not just ruined, he was humiliated. To go to the police meant admitting to all of Paris that he had been gullible enough to buy the Eiffel Tower from a stranger in a hotel room. So he said nothing. The shame of the victim was the con man's perfect alibi, and Lustig had counted on it from the very first handshake. And here is what separates Victor Lustig from every other swindler in history. When he saw, after weeks of silence, that Poisson had never reported him, he came back. He returned to Paris, gathered a fresh set of scrap dealers, and ran the entire con a second time. He sold the Eiffel Tower again. This time, his chosen victim grew suspicious and went to the police. Lustig fled the country, sailing for America, one step ahead of the law once more. Back in America, Lustig set his sights on a target that would have terrified any sane criminal, Al Capone. As the story goes, he asked the Chicago crime boss to invest $50,000 in a business venture, promising to double it. Capone handed over the cash. Lustig locked it in a safe and did absolutely nothing with it. 2 months later, Lustig returned to Capone, his head bowed. The deal, he confessed, had collapsed. And then he did the unthinkable. He gave back every single dollar untouched. Capone, who had braced himself to be cheated, was stunned by the man's apparent honesty. Impressed, he peeled off $5,000 and pressed it on Lustig as a reward. Lustig had conned Al Capone not out of his money, but out of his trust. It is a story told so often it has become legend. Whether it happened exactly so, we cannot prove. But every con man eventually wants the ultimate prize, a machine that prints money for real. By the 1930s, Lustig had found it, in the form of a partner named William Watts, a Nebraska druggist with the steady hands of a master engraver. Watts cut the printing plates. Lustig ran the distribution. Together, they began producing counterfeit American banknotes of terrifying quality. The forgeries were so flawless they fooled bank tellers, the supernotes of their era. At the operation's peak, investigators believed Lustig was pushing more than $100,000 in fake bills into the economy every single month. The notes spread so fast and so far that the United States Secret Service gave them a name of their own, the Lustig notes. It was the counterfeiting, not the tower, not Capone, that finally brought him down. In May of 1935, acting on an anonymous tip from a jealous mistress, agents arrested Victor Lustig on a New York street. In his pocket was a key. It opened a locker in a Times Square subway station, and inside sat $51,000 in counterfeit bills, along with the printing plates that made them. Even caged, Lustig could not resist one last performance. On the night of September 1st, 1935, awaiting trial in a federal detention building in Manhattan, he tore his bedsheets into a rope, cut through the bars, and climbed out a high window. As startled passers-by looked up, he calmly took out a rag, pretended to be a window cleaner, gave a little bow, and walked away. He was free for 27 days before they caught him in Pittsburgh. There were no tricks left. Victor Lustig pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 15 years for counterfeiting and another 5 for his escape, 20 years in all, and shipped to the most inescapable prison in America. At Alcatraz, the man who had been a count, a director general, a master of 45 names, became simply prisoner number 300. He never walked free again. In 1947, his health failing, Lustig was transferred from Alcatraz to a federal medical prison in Springfield, Missouri. There, on the 11th of March, the smoothest con man the world had ever known died of pneumonia. He was buried under one of his many false names. On his death certificate, a clerk filled in the box for occupation. It did not say swindler or counterfeiter or count. It said, apprentice salesman. Victor Lustig never built a thing, never owned the tower he sold twice, and may not even have been born under the name the world remembers. His only product was belief. He understood that the most valuable thing a con man can steal is not money, it is the victim's certainty that he is too clever to be fooled. He sold a landmark, swindled a gangster, and printed his own fortune. And the man who sold the Eiffel Tower twice died with $20 to his name. Case closed.